Packers 33, Panthers 30. Packers move to 7-8. Panthers fall to 2-13. Is this the most encouraging 33-30 loss you've ever seen for Carolina? Because Bryce Young showed signs of life. I got a data point on that, though.
Bryce Young with his 300-yard passing game.
Yeah, Bryce Young finishes 23 of 36 for 312 yards and 2 touchdowns. I want to talk about Bryce in a minute. Let's give the Packers the proper credit here, though. They needed the win. They pulled it off. They handled the comeback by Carolina. Again, another one of those games. Packers were only favored by 4.5 because their defense had really struggled in recent weeks. They'd cooled off after their Thanksgiving, early December run. Packers were up 30-16 at one point, but the Panthers kept coming back, man. Bryce Young with a touchdown to DJ Chark. Bryce Young, two touchdowns to DJ Chark, including just a beautiful one, rolling to his right, and an awesome 2-point conversion by Bryce Young. A lot of playmaking from Bryce. I do want to talk about him. But the Packers come back, get the game-winning field goal with 22 seconds left to escape 33-30.
Yeah, Aaron Jones was absolutely killing the Panthers early in this game. I mean, Green Bay should have had this really in control, and it felt like another.
They did for a lot of it, yeah.
Yeah, but so it was another one of those games. Remember previously, before the truly awful performance against the Bucs, we were sort of saying, it's not that the Packers defense has been horrendous overall, but they're situationally horrendous. So, like, when they get up, they suddenly get ridiculously. They play like prevent defense, right? And they play so soft, the teams are just suddenly very able to move the ball completely at will. And it has the exact opposite effect of the one that it's presumably trying to have. And that kind of felt like what they did in this game. Like, they got up, they took a lead, they took command. Aaron Jones is destroying them. The Panthers have no offense still at this point. Like, their best plays are trick plays to Smith-Marset or penalties. It's like, that's the offense right now. Pulling out tricks or hope we get a defensive holding penalty and that'll move the ball. And they should have been able to walk away with this game, but then they just play this crazy soft defense, and Carolina is able to come back because of that. And Bryce Young has like a career day, like 300 and something yards. His previous, he hadn't had over 250 before this.
So on one hand, again, if you're evaluating Bryce Young, the quarterback, I would say, watching him, he missed a ton of throws early, right, and then really settled down. I mean, he looked.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, those two things are connected
to what you're saying, right? But they were open. Like, he missed open throws early on. They weren't into like an ocean of open, like the second half on some of those throws. But if you're just evaluating Bryce Young, you would say he definitely he looks a little bit more comfortable. The natural playmaking's coming out. The 2-point conversion that he had, that scramble was outstanding. The feel, it was Mahomesian, if you will, as far as like understanding his speed versus the speed of his defenders, doing just enough to get into the end zone. The scramble drill touchdown to DJ Chark was just pinpoint in the red zone. A lot of good stuff from Bryce Young here. But then, of course, I had to do the same little mini research project I did last year when you remember the Vikings defense. Mm-hmm. And it was like, man, it feels like everyone's having a career day against this Vikings defense last year. And when I looked it up, there were 5 quarterbacks who in that particular year had their highest grades against Minnesota, which is a massive number.
Yeah. 5
doesn't sound like a lot until you realize, no, their highest grade of the season was just against this team. Well, the Packers have matched that now this year. The 5 quarterbacks, there are 5 quarterbacks who have all had their highest PFF grade of the year against the Packers defense. It's Justin Herbert, Baker Mayfield, Bryce Young in this game, Kirk Cousins, and Tommy DeVito. All had their best game of the year against the Packers defense. And that's the reason why Packers fans very uneasy about Joe Barry, this defense. And again, it's kind of tough to pinpoint. It's not as simple as they just play prevent, but they even when they play like a simple cover 2, it's just like the linebackers just aren't there. I mean, it's just there's too many easy throws. And even when they try to play man, they don't. It's not all just they play soft zone. They try to play man, and they're giving up a lot of space as well. They're just really struggling on that side of the ball.
They have this tendency to play like crazy off man, like way off. It's like that. Yeah. I mean, those things don't work. You can't give somebody that much space playing man coverage. That's just automatic, yardage.
So either way, Jordan Love plays another nice game. Romeo Doubs finds the end zone. Dontarian Wicks again. It's all the young guys I think there's a lot to be optimistic about with the Packers on the offensive side of the ball. And I'm not trying to look too far ahead here. If they do make a change at defensive coordinator, much like Minnesota, using that comparison again, just a change year to year we see makes a big impact. Never calling for anybody's job or anything like that, but if Green Bay makes a change, just bringing someone else in there with the current level of talent, Green Bay is dangerous next year. If Love continues to progress, this youth movement on the offensive side of the ball,
that'll be, assuming it does open up, that will be a fascinating job opening, because Matt LaFleur is in that Shanahan coaching tree. That the big thing those guys are going through at the moment is all of them have gravitated towards that Vic Fangio type of defense because it was the one that gave them the most problems. And I actually think that it's had an effect. That sort of meshing of those two has had such a strong effect that all those offenses now are able to carve up that defense. Shanahan, McDaniel, LaFleur, I think them going up against Vic Fangio type defenses actually means that it's gone from a weakness to a strength. And a couple of those defenses are failing. So if you're LaFleur and you're like, right, this guy didn't work out, theoretically that was supposed to be that, do I go and get another Vic Fangio disciple type of coach? Like, do I still want this scheme to practice against? Or have I completed that level? And do I want to find the next level? Like, do I go after some sort of Brian Flores disciple? Because now that's the defense that's causing us problems. Like, it just becomes this really interesting philosophical discussion of what LaFleur wants to practice against.
I was wondering if you were going to connect the dots and maybe suggest Brandon Staley.
I thought about it, and I didn't want to do that to people.
Last time Brandon Staley was just defensive coordinator and not head coach, it was pretty good. That's why I got a head coaching
But like
job.
all of the things you're describing about Joe Barry's defense and how, those all are exactly what the Chargers have been doing since he got there.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know that you want to go, like, usually you tend to see some kind of knee-jerk reaction in the opposite direction of what you just got rid of. To just replace him with a different name who had done the exact same thing over the last couple of years feels wrong.
Yeah, it's tough to it's the Week 16 review show, so we can't get too far ahead of ourselves. Off-season discussion's fun, but
one Packers element that's worth bringing up is Rashawn Gary hasn't had a good game in a while now. The last really good performance from him was Week 12 against Detroit. That was Thanksgiving. So
he was tearing it up for a while, too.
Oh, yeah. He was on an all-pro. I mean, remember, they started the season and he wasn't playing a full-time workload because they were easing him back in from his knee injury. But on the part-time workload, he was basically matching any pass rusher in the NFL for production, for PFF grade. He didn't have a bad game until Week 8. So basically the first half of the season, he was on an absolute tear. The last month, though, since Thanksgiving, he hasn't had a pass rushing grade above 61 or an overall grade above 62.4. I mean, they need Gary to be playing at his best for that defense to be anywhere near capable of doing what it can do. Which
coincides with the defensive failures. And on that list of the 5 quarterbacks that I mentioned that have had their career games or season high grades, those are 3 straight weeks, by the way. That's Tommy DeVito, then Baker Mayfield, and then Bryce Young in this game. 3 straight quarterbacks. So Nick Mullins next week, as people in my mentions have said. Maybe Nick Mullins is next.